These are the review sheets for 9.5 and 9.6. So starting with the quadratic formula, we're going to solve each one of these with that, round our answers to the nearest hundredth if necessary. So first thing with these types of problems is we need to make sure it's in standard form. That means basically everything's on one side of the equation with 0 on the other. So this one's good to go. But for example, when we get to number 2, we're going to have to move this 2 before we can determine an A, a B, and a C. So for number 1, we can find an A, B, and a C right now because it is in standard form. So A is a coefficient of V squared, so that's 1. Coefficient of V is -4 because of the minus, and C is 4. So we are plugging into the quadratic formula, which is -b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. You've been working on that all week. All right, rewrite it every single time so you start to memorize it. Equals, now we're going to plug in. Now when you plug a negative in for b, it's going to say -4, so that becomes a +4. The plus or minus is there because when you take a square root, there's a positive and a negative answer. Okay, we're going to do b squared. -4 times -4, that's +16. Remember, if you do that in the calculator, you got to put the negative in parentheses when you square it. Minus 4 times a, which is just 1, so that doesn't change anything, times c, which is 4. All of that over 2 times a, which is just 1. So we can simplify this very quickly and easily here. We've got 4 plus or minus square root 16 minus, there's only one negative here and it's the minus, all the rest are positives, so it's going to stay negative or minus. 4 times 1 times 4 is 16 over 2, so this is going to be 0. So the discriminant is 0, which means we're only going to have one solution. We're not going to have two. Now technically you can split this up into separate ones once we get there. Square root of 0 is just 0, so it's 4 plus or minus 0 over 2. So technically, again, you could do 4 plus 0 over 2. You could do 4 minus 0 over 2. But adding 0, minusing 0 is going to give you the same thing. Either way, you're going to end up with 4 over 2 with one answer of 2. So when you see the discriminant is 0, you know it's just one possible answer, and that answer in this case is 2. Number 2, we got to do some rearranging here to get this in standard form before we can determine what A, B, and C are. So we're going to minus 2 from both sides of our equation. Get rid of it here, get it to 0, so it's in standard form. These terms up front are not affected because they are not similar. So 7 minus 2, though, we get 5. So now we have an A, a B, and a C. So A, the coefficient to x squared is 12. B, the coefficient to x is 5. And C, the free number here is -5 because of the minus. And I don't know where that minus came from when I look at it. 7 minus 2 is +5. So this is +5, not -5. Okay, now we're ready to go. So -b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Plugging in -b, so -5 goes in for b plus or minus square root of b squared, so 5 squared is 25 minus 4 times a, which is 12, times c, which is 5. All of that 2 times a, so 2 times 12. All right, so if I run this right here, I can see that's going to be a pretty big number, and there's only one negative here, the 4, so it's going to stay negative. So this is going to be 25 minus a big number, meaning we're going to get a negative as the discriminant, which means there's going to be no solution here, but let's show our work. So -5 plus or minus, on the bottom we're going to have 24. If you run all this through your calculator, it comes out to -215. And when you get a negative discriminant, you cannot take the square root of a negative. If you try in the calculator, it will give you an error message. And so you can stop right here and just say no solution. All right, number 3, not in standard form. So we do need to move this to this side, so I'm going to add 4x to get it there. Now, it's not actually going to combine with anything on this side because there's no like terms here. So it cancels here, giving me 0. So now we're set up for standard form. Nothing combines. 7x squared. We added 4x, so it's a plus 4x. And the negative or minus 24 also just stays. So nothing combines as there's no like terms. So now we have an A, a B, and a C. So A is 7, B is 4, and C is negative 24. Okay, so we've got negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So let's plug in. So negative b is negative 4 plus or minus b squared. So 4 squared is 16 minus 4 times 7 times negative 24 all over 2 times a, which is 7. When you look at this, you might think back to what we just did and think, well, this is going to be a big number. I'm going to minus it. There's going to be no solution. But I have a negative here and a negative 4. 2 negatives will make a positive. So this will end up being a plus big number. So this will become a positive discriminant, meaning there's going to be 2 answers here. So let's go ahead and run these numbers. We're going to have 4 times 7 times 24. So that's going to be 672. And it's going to, let's write it out so we don't get confused. Negative 4 plus or minus square root of 16. Like we said, a negative and a negative is going to become a plus 672. All of that's going to be over 14. Go ahead and combine 672 and 16. And you get the 688. So negative 4 plus or minus square root of 688 over 14. So we need to take the square root of 688, and you'll notice it's not a perfect number. So we're going to have to split this up. You don't want to round this too early. You could write out all those decimal places, and that's fine. That'll work. Or you can just do this in 2 separate pieces from here. So you're going to do it once negative 4 plus the square root of 688 divided by 14. And you can do it once negative 4 minus the square root of 688 over 14. So if you split it up early, you don't have to worry about when do I round, how much do I round, all of that stuff. So I can just run the numbers here. So negative 4 plus square root of 688 divided by 14. And now I'm to my final answers here. So now I'm allowed to round. It says round to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so we're going 2 decimal places, tenths, hundredths. So the 7 tells me to bump that 8 up. So this is going to be 1.59. When I work the bottom, it's negative 4 minus the square root of 688 divided by 14. Final answer, now is a good time to round. Tenths, hundredths. Okay, 9 bumps it up. So it's going to be negative 2.16. Okay, and last one, number 4. We got a lot of rearranging to do here. We need all of this to get on the other side. So I'm going to add the 12n to both sides. And we're going to line it up directly underneath its like term, if it's possible. Plus 1, plus 1. Remember, it can't happen twice on the same side of the equal sign. That is our middle point. You can do it once on each side. So the negative 12n gets canceled by the positive 12n. That's what we wanted. Oh, and I'm just going too fast, right? Positive 1 is going to get canceled by a minus 1. So this should be a minus 1. So this will cancel out and give me 0. Now on this side, I also have a negative 12n, which will get canceled by a positive 12n. So that goes away. And now I've got negative 80 minus 1. That's going to be a negative 81 or minus 81. And 4n squared is the only term that has not been affected so far. All right. This is now standard form, even though I don't have that other term anymore. A is 4. That's the coefficient to the variable being squared. B is the coefficient to the single variable, okay, that has a power of 1, which in this case went away, and so that is 0. And C is negative 81. So plugging into the quadratic formula, negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So negative b, well, that's just 0. There's no negative 0. Plus or minus square root of 0 squared is 0 minus 4 times negative 81. So just looking ahead right here, I'm going to have a negative and a negative, so it's going to be positive. So it's going to be 0 plus whatever I get here. So that's going to be my discriminant. And on the bottom, 2 times a, 2 times 4. If you want to jump straight to 8 right there, that's fine. All right, so we've got 4 times 81. So 1296. Squeeze this in here. It's going to be 0 plus or minus the square root of. Now this is 1296. The negative and the negative make a positive, so it's going to be 0 plus 1296, which is just 1296, all over 8. The square root of 1296 is 36, so I get 0 plus or minus 36 over 8. Notice I had a positive discriminant. That means there's going to be 2 answers. So now I can split this into 2. It's 0 plus 36, so just 36, divided by 8, and 0 minus 36, so negative 36 over 8. So positive 36 divided by 8 is going to give me 4.5, and negative 36 divided by 8 is going to give me negative 4.5. All right, so that's all good practice on using the quadratic formula to get the actual answers or solutions. So as we move on to the second review sheet, looking specifically just at the discriminant, we're just looking at how many solutions are there. So being able to recognize how many solutions there are in an equation based on the discriminant. So I'm going to do all the work down here. There's still work to show, so make sure you do. For number 4, I'm just first going to bring it down, and then we got to do some rearranging here. To get this into standard form. So notice it says, give the number of real solutions by the equation using the discriminant. So we're not actually going ahead and getting the answer using the quadratic formula, just the discriminant, which is the part that's inside the square root, so b squared minus 4ac, that's the discriminant. So we got to get this in standard form, identify our a, b, and our c, just like we would if we were solving using the quadratic formula, but then just plugging into the discriminant. And the value that we get there tells us how many solutions there are. So I need to minus 23 here on both sides. There's no like term to combine it with, so it just becomes part of the sentence over here. So minus 4.58 and minus 23. Nothing to combine it with here. So a equals 6, b equals negative 4.58, and c equals negative 23. Just plugging into the discriminant, so b squared minus 4ac. So b squared, that's going to be negative 4.58 times negative 4.58. So again, with the negative, you got to be careful. You got to be thinking a negative squared is always a positive. So if you plug this in and you just did negative 4.58 squared, it's going to give you a negative answer as opposed to putting it in parentheses. Negative 4.58 squared gives you a positive. So you have to make sure that you understand negative squared should be a positive. Okay, so this is positive 20.9764 minus 4 times a, which is 6, times c, which is negative 23. So just looking at this, I have a negative and a negative. This is going to end up plus. So it's 20.9764 plus 4 times 6 times 23, which is 552. So if I go ahead and add that with the 20.9764, my discriminant is 572.9764. More importantly, my discriminant is positive. And that's the main part that we have to get. If it's positive, there's 2 solutions. So the answer here is 2 solutions. Be right back. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so moving on to number 5. We got some fractions and stuff. We'll deal with that accordingly. So number 5 here at the bottom. So the nice thing about number 5 is we are already in standard form. So a is negative 1/4, b is negative 5, and c is negative 91/3. We're going to plug right into b squared minus 4ac, just the discriminant. So b squared, negative 5 times negative 5 is going to be positive 25. Minus 4 times negative 1/4. Well, that's convenient because when you multiply 4 times 1/4, you just get 1. So this is just going to be 1 times c, which is negative 91/3. So first of all, we've got negatives here, 3 of them. So my answer is going to be negative. So it's going to say 25 minus whatever I get here. Now, like I said, this times this is just going to be 1. 4 times 1/4 is 1. Times anything is just going to give us that number, but we can run it through to double check. So we had 4 times 1/4 times 91/3, and we get 91/3. And again, I just don't even bother with the negatives in the calculator. I just count them, and if it's an odd number, I know it's minus. If it's even, they cancel each other out, and it's positive, and then you don't have to worry about them in your calculator and get confused. So it's going to be 25 minus this. So that I could run in the calculator. Remember, if you didn't have a scientific or a graphing to put the fractions in themselves, you can always just do 91 divided by 3. So 30.33. So 25 minus 30.33. 3 is this. So I get negative 5.3 repeated, which is negative 5 1/3. We need to know that. But the important part is right here. Regardless of what we've got here, we know it's negative. And so to answer the question, how many solutions are there? When the discriminant is negative, there are no solutions. Okay, number 6. For the sake of squeezing this in, we'll come up here. Now, on this one, you've got choices, right? We can move these all over here. We could move this one over here, but then we're going to have all negatives. So I want to get this in standard form by adding both of these to the other side. So I'm also going to add them over here. So plus 19.2g plus 38.4. So the whole thing now is going to read 2.4g squared plus 19.2g plus 38.4. So A and B and C are 2.4, positive 19.2, and positive 38.4. So let's see what happens. We're plugging into b squared minus 4ac. So b squared, 19.2 squared gives me 368.64 minus 4 times 2.4 times 38.4. So if I do 4 times 2.4 times 38.4, I get 368.64. And when I look at these three, I've only got one negative, so we're going to stay negative. So it's 368.64 minus 368.64, which is 0. And when the discriminant is 0, there is one solution. Common mistake, and I guarantee you people will do it on the quiz, is they're going to get 0 for the discriminant, and they're going to say there are 0 solutions. Okay, so be careful. When you get 0, there's actually one solution. No solutions comes from a negative discriminant. Okay, number 7, I'm going to squeeze in here at the bottom. And again, notice all the work I'm showing. So that is what I should be seeing from everyone. When I look at this, it's already in standard form, so I'm going to jump straight to identifying my A, my B, and my C. So A is going to be 1, B is going to be negative 10, and you can't see it there, and then C is going to be 25. So from there, b squared minus 4ac. Negative 10 squared, any negative squared is positive, so 10 squared is 100 minus 4 times a times c. Well, this one's easy. First of all, I only have one negative, so it's going to stay a minus. 4 times 1 times 25. 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 times 25 is 100. So 100 times 100 is 0. And so when I get 0, what is the number of solutions? 1. There's one solution. This one also in standard form, so I'll go ahead and do it right here. A equals 4, B equals negative 4, C equals 4. So b squared minus 4ac. Negative 4 squared is 16 minus 4 times 4 times 4. So it's going to be 16. There's only one negative, so it's going to stay minus. 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. We're going to get a negative here, so there's going to be no solution. But to show our work, 16 minus 64 is negative 48. And so the total number of solutions here is 0 solutions. So if you saw that on the answer key, that's what the 0 represents. If you write no solutions, obviously you are saying the same thing. So either one of those is fine.